I can only control what I can control. But what you can control, control it. And that's important, that you're living life with intention, and the things you can't control, you release. Not living in the past and not living in the future with anxiety, and in the past is with regret. Living in the now and living with intention. For the general population, this tape, you will be shocked at like even 4 or 5 hours of sleep will feel like 8. And it's the reason why your 7 or 8 hours of sleep feels like 4. It's because you're mouth breathing.
Hello everyone, Dr. Dave Moore here, and I'm really thrilled to be sitting here with Shawn Wells, who is, probably, as far as what I've seen so far, they call him the ingredientologist, a nutritional biochemist, author of the energy formula. What's interesting is as I'm going through looking at the things you have out there on the internet, all of the testimonials out there from people that I know in the industry who are very high level people, all calling you the GOAT when it comes to supplementation and formulation, biohacking. So that's exciting for me to be sitting across from you today. But so first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to be on, David. This is going to be an awesome show. I know it.
When I look at some of all the things you've done and all of the podcasts and all the books and your accolades, right? The first thing that I think of right away is like, how'd you get into all this? Like, what is the driving force? At what point in your life did you say, that's what I want to do? And tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, it just makes me think about like this is something I get into in the book, like towards the end of the book, where I, get into growth and stoic mindset, and even like your tribe and community and connection, and how important all that stuff is. And I think about like these goats out there, as you call them, the greatest of all times, like that Michael Jordan, didn't make the basketball team, that Tiger Woods had it like really intense with his family. And I just watched a documentary on Mike Tyson and how difficult his life was coming up. And these guys that are goats, like there's always the why behind it. And there's the adversity. The obstacle is the way, right? And for me, I grew up in a very chaotic home. I grew up with bullying, a number of abusive relationships in my life. And I was morbidly obese as a kid. Junk food was a solace for me. And I had very low self-esteem. And then going into college, I decided to get working out. And I ended up becoming obsessed with that. It became a good thing for a while. And then I actually got into anorexia, orthorexia, a little too far down that rabbit hole. But that's kind of what goes with low self-esteem. And, that's something I had to dig my way out of as well. But, I was working out with weights, using all these new supplements, creatine, protein, getting in better shape, went to my doctor, told him about it, how excited I was. He saw how much my body was changing, both, losing fat and gaining muscle. And he ended up like drawing out this lifeline for me and saying like, why not be happy between here and here? I was in school at the time to go to business school, and I ended up finishing up my degree in marketing, and that was great. And I still use that, but with his permission that he didn't even need to give me, like that sent me down a whole new path of like, whoa, I could do this whole supplement thing, the sports nutrition thing, which I was very passionate about at the time. I could do this for a living. And then I started like looking at some of these ads where there was these muscle tech ads, with the guy in the lab coat, and he's a formulator. I'm like, well, this is a job that you can have. And it just got me thinking about all that stuff. And so I ended up, after I finished my business degree, getting about 2 years of like 24 hours, 26 credit hours a semester of just sciences, so that I could get into UNC Chapel Hill to get my master's in nutrition, biochemistry, get my RD practice. I ended up after that practicing clinically. But about halfway through my pursuit of my master's, I ended up getting Epstein-Barr virus. I was pushing very hard. I'm still very tough on myself, working ridiculous hours, still fairly low self-esteem. Even, battling depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, those kinds of things. And I was stuck in bed for about 6 months with pain and inflammation. And I thought I would never be a productive member of society again. I thought my life was over. And then I stumbled into immune health supplements on these message boards and stumbled into the ketogenic diet and, eating whole food and really just exploring some of these nutritional interventions because I was in school for nutrition, but they were teaching me stuff from 20 years ago. I was on message boards looking at like, what's next? This is pre Facebook and Instagram and all that. So that ended up really reshaping my mindset. And I saw the power of the ketogenic diet. I saw the power of these immune health supplements. And I was able to get out of bed, get back to class 6 months later and recapture my life. And that's when like really everything changed. Like up until that point, I was more into like the aesthetics and bodybuilding and sports nutrition and athletes. And that's when things started to change for me. And then I started working in clinical populations and just seeing that there's some more important things happening than just being athletic. And I'm someone who still loves athletics. I play volleyball, I play basketball, I work out. But, seeing people die for a variety of reasons in hospitals and nursing homes, seeing the ravages of Alzheimer's, dementia, it started to shift my mindset quite a bit. And this is when I just became emblazoned with passion for supplementation, for diets, for biohacks, for how I can make an impact on the human race when the Western diet and a sedentary lifestyle is destroying it.
Wow, that was a lot there to unpack, and I can relate to a lot of that. Thinking about, getting into health and fitness because I wanted to look good. Look good for, the girls. Whatever. Look good for sports. Look good in a t-shirt. And when you're younger, it's not really that much about immune system and
Right.
and health and all that sort of thing. I remember the massive amounts of protein in metrics and like going to the gym. So I'm thinking of this story of yours, and you have we have life, we have traumas, we have stuff that happens that bothers us. It's in our head. We grew up with it, and then you go to college to just I went to school to do the same thing. My dad was in business. He paid the bills. Well, without having to think much about it, I'm going to be a business major so I can pay the bills. So I can go to the gym and do what I love to do. Right. So then
Yep.
then you start to realize that your first hack, it's your college hack. It's like, I got an idea. I'm just going to do what I like instead of,
Yeah.
it is a hack because it's what a gift to have early in life to say, what if I follow something that I have like what a difference in the trajectory and the energy when you're like, wow, now I like this stuff. I can learn more about it. I want to get into it. So you're getting into it and but still in that like extreme bodybuilding mode, and you hit this brick wall. And now you start, so you go through that, and then you start this biochemical, nutritional understanding of things. And we haven't talked about the emotion stuff yet, because we know it's going to be mindset, right? It's chemical, physical, emotional stress. So we have emotional stress in life, haven't dealt with that yet. We have some biochemical stress, right? And some school stress, and then you hit a brick wall. So I'm just mapping this evolution because it's the evolution of a goat, right? I mean, I don't mean to say that any other way, but like, it's obvious how you're helping and serving people. But the process in which you're piecing this together in your life, getting the degrees and going forward. So, please continue on this, because I want to get us to this point where,
there's a few more things. When I was in hospitals and nursing homes, when you see the diets that I had to by law prescribe, or else I lose my license. I have to get in front of a regulatory board like JCO, state survey, federal survey, et cetera. And then there's litigious bodies that, want to sue you for things, especially when you're in nursing homes. I mean, it's just sue crazy. And so, when I'm having to give, no added salt to people with hypertension, low fat diets to people with, cardiovascular disease, give carbs all day long to people with type 2 diabetes, give corn syrup solid garbagey proteins to people that have burns, wounds, pressure ulcers down to the bone, or, whatever. And I'm giving them garbage. And then I remember talking to my GP at this one facility, and telling him I want to put everyone on creatine that has sarcopenia, that has wounds, etc. And he said, "What studies are on that?" I said, "There's 500 studies on creatine." And I was like, "What studies are on the medications that you're putting everyone on?" There's one or two studies, and they, are kind of on the fence of whether they're effective or not, and they get pushed through the FDA. It's like, come on, like, I'm not saying like take anyone off all their medications or that medications are ineffective, but like, some of these things deserve a hard look. And it was very frustrating to me that I couldn't put people on the best things for them. Like if I was to have someone who has cardiovascular disease, I would have them on a low glycemic, high fat diet, and it's frustrating. And with type 2 diabetes, I most certainly wouldn't be giving them carbs all day long and giving them insulin all day long. It's just frustrating. And insulin, I'm saying, for type 2 diabetics. So it was a very frustrating path. And when I could get out of the clinical environment, it was kind of killing me inside. Like I was passionate about the patient, but frustrated about the process. And so when I got out of that environment and started working for companies doing formulations like Dymatize and then BioTrust, and building out these departments, being able to do studies, have quality control, R&D, again, that just made me more passionate. And then partway through my time at Dymatize, I got a brain tumor. And that changed a lot of my thinking too. Now I started becoming even more passionate about brain health because I had dealt with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, trauma. And then I had been surrounded by Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, these kind of neurological conditions. And then for me to get this tumor is like, I'm going to start really looking into this stuff. And that's when I started working on mitochondrial health, because I had energy issues with my autoimmune condition. I started looking into brain energy gap with the brain and how I can resolve that. And it's actually a very similar scenario. So that led me down this path of like, how can I resolve some of these conditions that are going on metabolically, this biological over chronological aging, this tendency towards metabolic dysfunction, really related to almost all disease, and what's at the heart of that, and how can I help solve that? And that's where I started doing a lot of my research, looking into these unique ingredients, patenting ingredients, working on formulas. Even when I was doing sports nutrition formulas, I was kind of like Trojan horsing them to be like these anti-aging ingredients. It's like that was always at the heart. Like I just wanted to make people healthier. And I've been proud of, like, I've never been one to cut corners, never one to do proprietary blends. And, people like my formulas. So yeah, that's really what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
It absolutely shows. I mean, the energy form of the book is we'll talk about that. Tell people how to get to that. But, one of the things you talk about is the mind. And so when you say that, are you talking about formulaically, or you're more interested in talking about mindset? Is there a combination of the two? I mean, I think a lot of times people, as a chiropractor, they want to ask about your aches and pains and how do you fix this? How do you fix this broken thing, right? I'm sure as a formulator, you get like, what pills should I take for this? And what should I take to lose weight? What should I take? So, and I think it's important for us to talk about that but I think we kind of get pigeonholed into that's who we are. That's who you are. But it takes, there's things that get us to that point in life, right? So I asked somebody recently, she's an herbologist, about what she would do for stress. And she didn't mention any herbs. She was just like, get off the news, get into a breathing routine,
Sure.
learn about coherence. And so I think that, and we can obviously, kind of lightning around some cool supplements at the end or whatever you want. We'll definitely get to that because people want to know that, obviously. But if we jump to that, we miss out on that whole piece, which I think is the most important thing. I mean, our practice, we would adjust people's spines, but what you ate, how you think, and how you use your body is what's going to keep you out of the office. It's going to keep you healthy. It's going to keep you living longer and more active, and not just from the physical end. It's more rewarding, more life experience. So let's talk about that if we can. I know you like to talk about that as well.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. The name of the game there is really resilience, and that goes back to that stoic mindset of the obstacle is the way, like that incredible book. And if you think about what that means, is that you don't want no obstacle there. You don't want a shortcut around the obstacle, that the obstacle is what makes you stronger. We become more fragile. We become easier to kill. We become less resilient. There's the idea in your body, there's allostatic load. It's your stress bucket. And we have much smaller stress buckets than we used to. And so when stress comes into our life, even what's considered a eustress, as well as obviously distress, a eustress would be a quote unquote good stress. Think of like hormetic stresses, like doing a ketogenic diet, like doing fasting, like doing cold plunges and red light saunas and, whatever. But we have such a small bucket that when other things are going on, everything's a distress. Everything that comes into our life, everything is making this bucket overflow. Even things that should be quote unquote eustresses are bringing distress to us. And so we're easier to kill. We're more fragile. And that's why we're metabolically dysfunctional. And it really does start with the brain, the mind. And like you're saying, like if we can be more resilient, if we can reframe positively, like you are the placebo, right? We're usually reframing negatively, nocebo direction. We're saying, oh, that sucks. That figures. Of course, this happens to me. We're not even realistic about a situation. We're reframing negatively. Successful people have two things in common, largely found by Tim Ferriss in Tools of Titans. One thing they have is a really dialed morning routine. The second thing is that they're expert reframers. They see the opportunity. They see the challenge. They see the chance to get better when things happen to them that are adverse. And that's the difference. And these people that seem like they have ice water in their veins, or they rise to the occasion, or, we love Tom Brady or whoever it is, they have giant stress buckets. They have a high capacity for stress because they're attuned to deal with stress. And it can be a great way to train your body to train your mind, and vice versa. When you're doing these hormetic stresses that I was talking about, like when you're doing cold plunge, red light sauna, fasting, whatever, that's going to help you be more resilient in your brain. And when you're doing things that are challenging, when you're putting your belt on the opposite way, when you're taking a different way to work, when you're traveling around the world, when you put more interesting, unique thinking people around you that don't share your opinion, when you learn a new language, when you take on a new instrument, when you stay more neuroplastic and challenge yourself, then you will be more resilient in your body as well. It works both ways. So that's key to find ways to challenge yourself, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and enjoy it. And when you stop complaining about going to work, when you stop complaining about having to do this exercise, and you stop being the victim, and you shift to saying, this is an opportunity, this is a challenge, I'm getting better, the universe is always working for me, you will then become successful. You will then become resilient in your body and your mind.
I love that. I love everything that you just said, because so it becomes a conscious effort to increase your bucket, right? It becomes a conscious effort to increase your bucket. And immediately the first thing I think of is, because you're getting into some biohack things that I have not tried yet, but just like when I would go to CrossFit, in the morning, it sucked. I mean, and I was trained to embrace the suck. And what I meant was, I would put myself at 6 a.m. through a mental, just as it's physical, but mental stress beyond most people that I could think of would even be doing at my age or anything, which is another issue. And then that was over. I was like, I can deal with anything that day, like anything, because I was in hell this morning. I went to hell this morning, I had breakfast, and now I'm here. Like, nothing can bother me. Interesting. You said something that made me think, like, as people get older, I wonder if I think you're going to agree, right? That bucket gets smaller because we fall into these comfort patterns. And I think as we need to seek out ways to increase that uncomfortableness. So you mentioned, whether it is the mental piece that's just as important. The physiology will adapt, but you've got to put yourself and push yourself outside that comfort zone every single day. And I look, and what's interesting, when I would do, and I haven't been as I've gotten a little older, but when I used to do that regularly, I would seek that. Like, I've got to get a little bit uncomfortable every day. And for me, that was like that was the hack. But however I did it, that was the hack. Like, if I can get a little bit uncomfortable every single day, then mentally and physically, and maybe even spiritually, I was coming from a different perspective. And when I didn't, more things bothered me. And that's just on the mental level, not let alone the physiological level. Where is the point where you stress, which is, I would say, you call it constructive stress. It's kind of relative, right? Because you could do too much eustress, right? And then what would you call beyond? What would you call it once it's not constructive anymore?
Yeah, it's a bell curve. I actually have this diagram in my book where, like, the left-hand side of the bell curve, if you can imagine that, is eustress, and then the sweet spot right down the middle at the heart of the bell curve is the Goldilocks zone, and that's like the perfect amount of stress to cause the perfect amount of adaptation. And then on the right-hand side, the downslope is where you start passing that threshold and it starts becoming counterproductive and distress. And so that's the way to look at it. But you bring up a really great point about one intention, is that a victim feels like life is happening to them, and someone that's proactive is taking on life and doing the best they can with it, and planning as much as they can, setting out intention as much as they can, and then realizing that, like that one, I think it's a Bible verse, like, I can only control what I can control, but what you can control it, and that's important, that you're living life with intention, and the things you can't control, you release. Just get rid of that stuff. Don't focus on that stuff. Don't dwell on that stuff. Don't live with regret. So much of this is about, like, that, not living in the past and not living in the future with anxiety, and in the past is with regret, living in the now and living with intention, and say you're going to make an impact today. And that's where affirmations, mantras, gratitude, journaling, some of these things can be so helpful to put you in the here and now. And so you're getting out of the past and the future and just living for the moment.
You talk about those things in your book, the energy formula. Am I right? And so, which I have not read. So, just going to be so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read it. So our
Okay.
next, so they'll give us a reason to talk again. Because we can go
That'd be awesome.
deeper into some of those concepts. So that's my shameless ploy to have you back. But I know that the mindset piece is just so important. So I'm happy we got this at least touch upon it for the community today, because it's one thing we have to stop and realize where we're at. And guess what? That's free stuff. Mindset, it's, we don't have to go too far to start creating some of those things that we can do.
Yeah. Sorry,
Right?
one thing that you brought up, that as we get older, we get both smarter and dumber. And I can explain that. So like there's two types of intelligence. There's fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. And fluid intelligence is that neuroplastic intelligence. That's that resilient intelligence where we can take on new tasks and learn them, do them, like learning the new language, etc. The crystallized intelligence is a type of intelligence where we get faster and faster at something. Essentially, that box gets smaller and smaller. And there's an advantage to that. Like we get hardwired to something and it just becomes routine and easy for us. And there's safety in that. There's less energy used in that. And that's a way that we get smarter as we get older. We have to continue to find ways to challenge ourselves to maintain fluid intelligence, to maintain neuroplasticity. And that's the part that isn't easy, especially to your point. Like, we want to get smaller and smaller in that box and safer with the people that think like us, act like us, do like us, go to that one restaurant that we really like, those kinds of things. Like, it gets simple to do that as we age. So it's difficult. It's hard to be uncomfortable and find ways to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So that would be something I'd add to that.
Especially if you're hanging out with people your own age as you get older. It's like, well, you do what? You walk a mile? What, are you crazy? You do.
Yeah.
It's bad for your knees.
Exactly.
Be the crazy. Keep moving. Motion is life. We used to say you rest, you rust. And what's cool about what we just talked about, increasing that allopathic load, both mentally and physically, you're pretty much doing the same activity. So you're hitting it from both directions by getting out, getting uncomfortable, stretching yourself a little bit more each time. Awesome. So I don't want to not get into maybe some hacks of the week, hacks of the day. What's on your mind? If you had a couple of minutes to tell somebody, hey, maybe it's not a supplement, right? So you tell me, like, what would you want as we kind of wrap this up? What is the one thing that people could be doing, should be doing, that could be impacting, upgrading their life, their lifestyle, how they feel, their health? There's one thing. You can give as many as you like, but a couple thoughts would be great for closing.
Okay, my best biohack that's completely free is taping your mouth at night when you sleep. It's going to sound really weird for people that have never heard of it. You can get like a paper tape from 3M, or you can even buy some companies make actual sleep strips. Somnifix is one company, but you just get tape and tape your mouth closed. We're not meant to be mouth breathers. The temperature isn't right, the filtration isn't right, the moisture level isn't right, and the oxygen saturation and the exchange of gases isn't right when we're breathing through our mouth. It's very inefficient. That's why there's jokes about being like a mouth breather and being less intelligent and all that. But a lot of us do this at night, and I'm not even referring to, if you're apneic, you're on a fast track to death. Like, dead serious. Like, let's talk real talk. Like, people die by 50 that are apneic in their 40s. No joke. You're anoxic, meaning you're not getting enough oxygen to the tissues. snoring, and especially like that gasping kind of, long time between breaths that happens with apnea can kill you. So I just want to put that out there. Please see a physician. Please talk to a dentist, dental surgeon that works with that stuff or whatever, but please explore that.
What's your feelings on
sleep study? Yeah, I mean, that's where like, yes, and I think it's a lot better if you can go this route of taping them out. Not everyone that I'm saying, like almost everyone could benefit from mouth tape, because some of us are doing it to some degree, even those that aren't snoring, that aren't apneic, etc. But if you can fix it with tape versus using this device, yes, I mean, that would be better. But I would do that in a sleep study under an advisement of a physician. But for the general population, this tape, you will be shocked at like even 4 or 5 hours of sleep will feel like 8. And it's the reason why your 7 or 8 hours of sleep feels like 4. It's because you're mouth breathing and you're not getting quality sleep. And it makes a massive difference. And they've shown that when you get 6.5 hours or less of sleep a night, you're actually acutely insulin resistant. And when you do that chronically, you're chronically insulin resistant. And now you're on the way to metabolic dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction, faster biological aging, and 99% of all disease, including cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, etc. So you need to get your sleep. And this is going to be a game changer. Put a piece of tape on your mouth and you'll be surprised at how much better you feel in the morning. So that's my number one hack that's essentially free.
My wife's gonna definitely push for me to keep it on during the day, but I'm definitely gonna try it at night.
Yeah, and I know it might seem weird, and no, you can't talk if you have a partner in bed after you put it on. I get all that. And yes, it might come off during the night. It's fine. You'll get used to it over time. Like even if for the first 2 weeks it comes off an hour and 2 hours in, whatever, it's okay. Another thing to do is actually training with it on. And I know that would get even weirder to be seen with tape on your mouth if you're out in public. But if you're like out on a hike, if you're working out in the yard or working out in your house, try putting some tape on. Another way that we tend to gasp for air is during exercise, and we'll be mouth breathers. You'll be surprised about how much faster you recover, both acutely and long term, when you start taping your mouth, really getting good at being a nasal breather. So even during exercise, it's excellent too. My supplement that I would throw out, my number one supplement I think everyone should be on, is an ingredient, and full disclosure, I've been on this patent. So dihydroburbarine. The reason I did this was because metformin was the most fascinating compound to me. Glucose disposal agent, a lot of diabetics use it, but longevity people have been using it for 20 years that are super healthy and lean and insulin sensitive. And the thing is there that it's working on this metabolic pathway called AMPK, AMP kinase. And it's an incredible anti-aging pathway that keeps us lean, that keeps blood sugar low, keeps insulin low, which is associated with pro-aging, and as well as metabolic dysfunction. And so we find that people that are on metformin, berberine, or this new metabolite dihydroburbarine have lower inflammation levels, have lower glycation, which is blood sugar damage, have longer telomeres, have less dyslipidemia, have better biological to chronological aging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing this, like you can look at CRP levels, which is an inflammation marker. You can look at hemoglobin A1C levels, which is a blood sugar marker, and see improvements across the board. Dihydroburbarine is about 5 times more bioavailable than regular berberine. And berberine outperformed metformin head-to-head in the study. So in this case, the supplement is to me vastly superior to the drug. But of course, work with your physician on that. I'm not saying that, this is a cure to diseases. Please work with your physician. But dihydroburbarine, about 5 times more bioavailable, doesn't have the GI distress that's associated with berberine or metformin, lasts about twice as long in the plasma, so you have to take it less often. And the doses are dramatically lower because it's more bioavailable. So you're taking about 300 milligrams a day versus 1,500 milligrams of berberine. So really one of the most potent ingredients I know that everyone should be taking for anti-aging purposes, and especially if you're one of the 88% in the United States that's metabolically dysfunctional. So that's the one to be taking. Those are my 2 big hacks.
Wow. And that's gold right there. So get some tape for your mouth and look into dihydroxyberberine to 300 milligrams a day. You're coming out with you're formulating that, or you're coming out with a product around that?
No, there's already a bunch of products out, and it's dihydroburbarine, and it's under the brand name Glucovantage. And I think there's about 15 different products that you could probably find on Amazon that have it.
Very cool. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time today and taking the time to be on multiple shows. You've been on, you were on Psychedelics Revealed and Cancer Revealed, and you were Supplements Revealed, Answer to Cancer. You were on, so we're gonna, so we appreciate you always taking the time and being able to educate our community. I'm going to take you up on that, but I won't reach out till after I read the book. We'll dive deep into some other things that are there as well. It's easy conversation to have. Remember, it's not about just what you put in your body; it's how you take care of yourself. So, any parting words, Shawn?
Well, people can find me at shawnwells.com, SHAWN. I have a free newsletter that goes through the latest studies and research and breaks it down in a simple way. Don't sell anything on it. So please sign up for that. I'm on Instagram at Shawn Wells, SHAWN. And I have lots of cool infographics and things there, like, again, going through the latest research, supplement stacks, etc. And then lastly, energyformula.com has my book. You can look at the first 2 chapters there. You can listen to the first 2 chapters. I have a bunch of free giveaways that come with the book, Fasting for Energy Guide, a hidden chapter on natural movement, Q&As, recipe books, all that stuff's free. So check out energyformula.com.
So I will include all those links below this video. So as you're watching this, click the links, check them out, and make sure you stay connected with Shawn. And Shawn, again, thank you so much for taking the time today, as always, and appreciate you. And we'll hope to see you again soon.
All right. Thanks, brother. Look forward to coming back.
You too. Bye.